Now, number 5. Where does Jesus ever say, I'm God? You get this all the time. Muslims say, listen, if you could show me anywhere in the Bible where Jesus says, I am God, I'll become a Christian. Now, please do not cheapen, and make sure that they don't cheapen what it means to become a Christian. That's not all it takes to become a Christian. But nonetheless, we need to answer that question. So where in the Bible does he say, I am God? There are 2 places I like to go to. There are many places you could go to. Let me just suggest 2, and they're on the paper there. Matthew chapter 26, verse 62 to 66. I've already intimated this is important because this will help the Muslims understand why the Jews reacted the way they did. In Matthew chapter 26, he's there in the Sanhedrin. Caiaphas is standing in front of him. And Caiaphas turns to him and he says, is it true that you claim to be the Son of God and the Messiah? Those are the 2 things he claims. What do you think, and why is he asking those 2 things? Well, because the Son of God, according to every Jew, inherits everything that the Father inherits, like I just said in the last question. So every Jew knew that when the Son of God came, and they knew that he was coming, that God himself was coming. And that you see in Isaiah chapter 7, verse 14, where Isaiah says, for this shall be a sign, a virgin will conceive and bear a son, and when he shall come, he shall be known as Emmanuel, God with us. So when the Son comes of this virgin, he will be God with us. That's in Isaiah 7:14. So every Jew knew they were waiting for this God with us, God who comes to earth, God who is able to walk and talk in the cool of the day, God who will be amongst us. God can do that for a Jew. That's not a problem. For a Muslim, it's a problem, but not for a Jew and not for us. So when Caiaphas was asking us, he was talking about that son, not about a son like you and I are. Messiah, every Jew is waiting for the Messiah. They're still waiting for the Messiah. And every Jew knew that the Messiah was defined as the anointed one. That's what Messiah means, the anointed one. Anointed for what? Well, Caiaphas knew that the anointed one would be anointed to save. Who could save but God himself? So when the Messiah comes, that would be God, who his function was to come and save. And that's why Caiaphas asked him these 2 questions. Are you the Son of God? Are you that Son of God? Are you the Messiah? Are you that Messiah? Because remember, there were about 100 Messiahs that came and went in that time period. But they were waiting for the Messiah who would be anointed to save them, who would come to save them. Now, what did Jesus respond? It is as you say. So he accepted those 2 titles, but he then added a 3rd one. He then went on and he says, for you shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds, referring to Daniel chapter 7, verse 14. I'm making it real easy for you guys and gals. Remember, I said Isaiah chapter 7, verse 14. Now I'm giving you Daniel chapter 7, verse 14. 7 is the perfect number. Double that is 14. Very easy to remember it. In Daniel 7:14, it defines who the Son of Man is. Now, Muslims love to talk about the Son of Man. You will hear many Muslims will bring this up in conversation. Jesus is not God. He is nothing more than Son of Man. See, Dr. Smith, we've proved it to you. Even Jesus uses that title more than any other, and that's true. He calls himself the Son of Man 25 times, proving that it's a very important title for him. So who is the Son of Man? The Muslims think he's just the man by being the Son of Man. That's not what Daniel is saying. Daniel is very clear that the Son of Man, not a Son of Man, you're a Son of Man, I'm a Son of Man, but the Son of Man, definite article, from every time to every time. What is it? From the beginning to the end. He is the Alpha and the Omega. He always existed. And he has dominion over all tribes, nations, peoples, and tongues. Who can be from all time, from beginning to the end? Who has dominion over all peoples, nations, tribes, but God himself? When Jesus mentioned this, remember, he was referring to Daniel 7:14. When he referred to this, what was the reaction of Caiaphas? He tore his robe and turned towards the Sanhedrin and said, what further proof do we mean? This man has blasphemed. This man, a mere man, was claiming to be the Son of Man, was claiming to be the Messiah, was claiming to be the Son of God, the 3 divine holy names. Now there's a 4th. And the 4th one is in John chapter 5, verse 58. John chapter 5, verse 58. Jesus is in the temple. Therefore, he would be speaking Hebrew, because that's what they spoke in the temple. Not Greek, not Aramaic, possibly Aramaic, but more than likely he was speaking Hebrew. And he was being questioned by the Jews there in the temple, and they were saying, how can you know Abraham when you're not even 50 years old? You're not even 50 years old and you say you know Abraham. And what did Jesus reply? Before Abraham was, Yahweh. Now in English, that's I am who I am. But Yahweh is what he would have spoken there, because they wouldn't have spoken English in the first century. English didn't even exist that early, I don't think. So he was using the Hebrew term that you find in Exodus chapter 3. Remember when Moses, before he wanted to go down, he didn't want to go down. Obviously, he didn't. He tried to get out of it, but God wanted him to go down to Egypt to bring out the Israelites who were in captivity. And he kept on trying to get out of it, trying to come up with one excuse after another. Finally, he turned to God and he says, "What is your name? What is your name?" And in verse 15 of Exodus there, he says, at that time, God responded to him, Yahweh, ego eimi in Greek, I am who I am in English. Yahweh, this is my name. And then in verse 15, he then goes on and says, and this shall be my name from generation to generation. This shall be my holy name forever, is what he was saying. So when Jesus used that name in the temple, claimed it for himself, before Abraham was, I am Yahweh, ego eimi in Greek. Look at the reaction of the Jews. They took up stones to stone him. Why? Because this man, this mere man, who was standing in front of them, was not even using the holy name. You don't even pronounce the holy name. When a Jew came across it in scripture, they had always put Adonai there, because it was such a holy name. It was God's unique name. It was God's personal name. It is God's eternal name. And yet Jesus was not only pronouncing it, he was claiming it for himself. He was claiming to be that God. I am who I am. Can you then understand why they wanted to kill him? And that's why, when you want to ask, where did Jesus ever say, I am God? Go to Matthew chapter 26, verse 62 to 66. Go to John chapter 8, verse 58. John chapter 8, verse 58.